Phil, Matt, lovely to have you on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. How many operations have you been on, would you say?
400 operations.
I'm nowhere near that, by the way. Do you know what I mean? It's a fraction of his time. Afghanistan, Iraq, and then you had all these other places opening up. And don't forget, Africa's a big continent as well, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And there's trouble. If you was to spin a globe and throw a pit, there's some trouble somewhere.
Before the Twin Towers, we were busy.
Before the Twin Towers, there was still stuff all over the place. It all came about by Winston Churchill wanting to push boundaries. You already had the SOE. Conventional war fighting was not going to win that war.
As soon as that spark initiated, it erupts. Yeah. Everyone's on you. They're around you. All of a sudden.
Phil, Matt, lovely to have you on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's very much looking forward to this one. I think, Phil, we've done a couple of episodes together. We had some proper laughs.
We've had some numbers, and we've had some views, mate.
We've done some proper views.
We've had some proper views, yeah.
I think our first episode at the moment, they checked out this morning, it was 890,000.
Mate, that's ridiculous.
That's long form content where people watch like an hour and a half and stuff. And
proper stuff.
Yeah, mate, proper stuff. Matt, we've had a fantastic one as well. I think you were one of the original ones that come on the podcast about probably 4 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah, that's done big numbers as well. But
I think it was Matt teed me up to come here.
I think it was.
Matt, it was you that teed me up to come here, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. Yeah. But this is really nice to have two of the finest SAS men in one room, and I just wanted to have a brilliant chat about your past and what you've done in the past sort of 3-4 years and what your movements have been. So let's roll all the way back. Where did you two first meet?
Well, we first met in the military, in the regiment.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, probably around Frank's house.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Drunk.
Or Frank's house or the Gamecock.
The Gamecock, probably, mate.
You just spent a lot of time in there.
In the sort of mid to late 90s, and we all sort of ended up thrown together in different squadrons, but socialising together and good muckers in the regiment.
Yeah, we always seemed to sort of like see quite a bit of each other, didn't we? Which was rare, because sometimes you pass selection with a guy and you don't see him again for 2 years. You go, where's he gone? Do you know what I mean? You don't even know. Yeah. But I don't know, we just always seem to be sort of like in and around all the time. Like,
you say pass selection with him, then you don't know where he's gone. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, you pass selection and you go to whatever squadron you go, A, B, D or G, and such is the pace of life. He's got to go and do his stuff, you've got to go and do your stuff. Your ship's in the night, aren't you? You just don't see that person again for X amount of, it must be worse now. I mean, it wasn't so bad in our day, but it must have picked up ridiculous.
So many operations, different rotations. The whole regiment works on a big rotation, and we just fit in on that rotation, depending on what operations are going on around the world, and that's what we do.
How many operations have you been on, would you say?
Actual operations. So every time we stepped out was an operation, and we were against different. We can't overemphasize some of the operations that we've done and some of the places we went, but 400 operations.
Wow!
I'm nowhere near that, by the way. Do you know what I mean? It's a fraction of his time and all. Do you know what I mean? He spent more time in the NAFI queue than I did. More time drinking tea than I spent. You know what I mean? But
400 operations.
Yeah. Yeah, so times were busy. We were campaigning in at least 2 different areas. Afghanistan, Iraq, on different. Without going into specifics, and then we had other areas of operations that we're not allowed to say for national security reasons. But one of just an example of a 4-year stint in my life. I had 9 months away for 4 years in a row, and those 9 months were campaigning, fighting this country's threats. And then on the 3 months you get off in that year, you're back, you see your family, you rejig, you sort your kit out, you get on your training courses, you keep in date, and then you launch back into theatre again. So yeah, it takes its toll, but a very busy period in all of our lives.
The whole world, there was a block period where the whole world just went mad, didn't it? You know what I mean? You had Afghanistan, Iraq, and then you had all these other places opening up. And don't forget, Africa's a big continent as well, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And there's trouble. Wherever you were, if you was to spin a globe and throw a pin, I guarantee it'd be near some trouble somewhere. Do you know what I mean? It'd be, and that's the way the world has been for the last, I don't know, 20, 30 years, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know what I
before,
mean?
before the Twin Towers, you know, we were busy.
Yeah,
Before
before the Twin Towers, there was still stuff all over the place. Do you know what I mean? But then, you know, that period after them just went. You know, it was a 15-year period where the whole of the British Army was at it, hammer and tongue. Do you know what I mean? With no time for itself.
Yeah.
So, yeah, crazy.
Good times. Not for the family, but good times for us who were like.
I think for a selfish thing, you know, in and out of all these places, best part of 20, 30 years, I suppose I did. And you're the same and more.
Yeah.
You know, it would have taken its toll on your family. It certainly took its toll on mine to a certain extent. But, you know, from a purely selfish point of view, I had a great time. Do you know what I mean?
Fun, mate. Yeah, it was
and
fun.
you know, whatever you were doing, you were cutting around this globe. Do you know what I mean? Doing what you wanted to do, wasn't it? You know what I mean? So
You say it was selfish and it took a toll on your family. Give me an example. What sort of toll it took on your family, Matt?
It's now you look back and you see the toll, the times that you weren't there for your children. You know, the guilt that I now feel when I'm lucky enough to have another little crack at the whip. I have a young 5-year-old Charles, and I try and spend as much time as possible with him, picking him up, dropping off from school. But they're the sort of things that we missed out on.
I think that's what you get. You do definitely get some of it. And I remember, look, I got this smack in the face back once because my son joined the military. He's still there now. And I remember one Sunday afternoon in particular, thinking to myself, I'll go for a beer with Perry. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, nice one. And Perry looked at me like, you won't be going with me because I've got to go back to camp. And that one time I was sort of like, gutted.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Gutted. And he had that all his life. Yeah. He had that all the way through being brought up. Football is, no, sorry, son, got it.
But it's not just the pressure on the kids, it's the pressure on your marriages, you know?
Yeah.
The marriages in the British military, let alone Special Forces, is constantly under strain. You know, we used to say the time out of bed. You know, how many days in that year have we spent out of our beds?
Yeah.
It was phenomenal. Yeah. You know, there's 300 out of 365. You know, you can't imagine that just being in normal life now. And looking back, I'm like, wow, you know. So marriage breakups were a norm. There weren't many marriages that survived.
No, there weren't many. No,
our service. No.
Are you both with the same woman?
I'm not.
Since the military? No?
No, I'm not. No,
none of us are. No. I mean, I met my and we can't. I can't knock my previous marriage because she looked after 3 kids while I was away playing fun for the government, and then life happens, and then we had a divorce, and I'm lucky enough to meet my partner, and she see 10 years of service, and she put up with a lot, and luckily she's robust enough. And
yeah, Wendy was never there when I served, but certainly, I did this circuit stuff where I marauded around the world, war zones everywhere I went, her not knowing where I was, not being able to contact her. She's been through 17 years now, I suppose.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Which is helped us. But it was because the kids were a bit older and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So we were growing up a bit more ourselves as well.
When you look at it now, like, you mentioned the word being selfish, and you had to go and look after you, the men around you, the military, etc. How do you think it was for the actual wife, knowing when you're coming back? Well, did they notice that you were different?
I mean, cast your mind back when me and Phil and I joined the Special Forces. There was no mobile phones.
No.
So when we joined, before we went on an operation, we were put in isolation, right? So you couldn't use that thing on the wall that people don't know about now. We had no mobile phones. We didn't have WhatsApp. There was no social media, none at all. So when we went, those ladies had a point of contact, which was our family's officer.
Yeah.
And he would brief them up on a weekly basis.
Everyone
was safe.
Or you got a chap on the door, and then it wasn't good news, was it?
Yeah, they couldn't tell them where we were, what we were up to. And so can you imagine that strain now?
The strain on the wives.
What the population would be like now, not knowing where your husband and wife is. It's, it had a catastrophic effect on.
How would you explain you at your peak in the military, Phil?
How I'd explain myself is probably not how my superiors would. I'm going to tell you that. I don't know. I was dedicated to the cause. I love the cause. Yeah. I enjoyed it. I was a soldier through and through, and that's all I ever wanted to be. Do you know what I mean? And I absolutely loved it. So, like I say, selfishly, I pursued that to the very end. I wanted to go Special Forces. I wanted to go selection. I wanted to be the tip of the spear. Didn't particularly want rank or anything like that. Just wanted to be a soldier. And that's all I wanted to do. So, my life was consumed by wanting to be a soldier, and I was a soldier.
You're engrossed in your work, and it's busy work. We spent our, I don't want to use the word, but we were targeting bad people around the world, and that engrossed you. You are focused on that job 100%. You are fine-tuned on finding where these people are, where the weak links are, and removing them from any threat to this country and our coalition, the US and all our great European partners that were part of and still are part of the fight.
And how many are there of you at the time? Like when you're talking there, you're waiting for that phone call, you're waiting for that pager to say, right, you're on an operation. Are you all there waiting and going, right, we're buzzing, let's go, we're in?
Yeah, 100%. You have a, there's no secret in how we're broken down. We're broken down into 4 Sabre squadrons who are fighting squadrons, and each member of that squadron has a specific skill and task, and that intertwines with the complete mission. And everyone in that squadron at that time everyone has their own job to do. Everyone knows their job and they're bloody good at it. And everyone is dying to do that job that they were trained for. So you are launched on a plane. It's phenomenal. And you put it on paper. If we wrote it down and put it on a business plan, it wouldn't work. But for some reasons, the UK Special Forces works and is, without doubt, the best in the world.
Yeah, I'd say by quite a distance and all, to be honest. Everyone else is just looking in as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I mean? They really are.
Well, how do you think the sort of the Navy SEALs are looking into the sort of the Special Forces, like the Americans looking in?
I mean, UK Special Forces back in the day in the desert in 41, when Sterling and Mayne, come up with this great idea and all the wonderful Jock Blues, this wonderful creation they thought about and put on paper, and fighting the Jerrys and all that. No one had that.
It all came about by Winston Churchill wanting to push boundaries. He already had the SOE. He already had a couple of things which were happening and he realised that conventional war fighting was not going to win that war. You needed to get behind enemy lines. You needed to disrupt and harry. You needed to be doing all sorts of stuff that wasn't conventional.
Yeah.
Now, some of the conventional Ruperts, some of your sort of like higher ranking Ruperts, went up against it originally.
What's your Ruperts?
An officer.
Yeah.
And these generals, we can't do that.
Oh, yeah.
No. We can't let Tibbles run behind enemy lines on his own. No, bloody hell, he'll get killed. But actually, while he's there, he'll probably kill quite a few himself. And all, do you know what I mean? So and that's how it was.
Yeah.
So, those days, those would have been the days for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, again, US and all the rest of our partner forces. We were the linchpin. We were the the first people that launched into Special Forces. Delta Force sent Mr. Beckworth, a guy called Beckworth, over. He done British SAS selection, looked at what happens, how we fought counterinsurgency, and then he created Delta Force.
And their selection was very much based on ours completely, wasn't it, at that time? Do you know what I mean? The whole way it was structured, what they did, how they conducted themselves, their ethos even. What kind of bloke do I want? Do you know what I mean? The regiment has a very strict ethos. Do you know what I mean? And it's, that's what they want.
Yeah, SEALs are, the SEALs are affiliated more to our special boat service, but we, now, and you'll see on, it's been well documented that there's integrated patrols. We work very closely with all of these units, but they're different breeds. You're in the Special Air Service and Special Boat Service. We are generalists, which means we are masters of none, but we know all of those different skills. In the SEALs and Delta Force, they are, I don't want to put them down. I'm sure there's a lot of the guys that when they, they'll come on and tell their side of it as well. They're more like door kickers that are supported by some extremely professional guys, but they're not all badged. They're not all badged. Their units are separate. And that's one thing I think we have always had and are very proud of, that every member of our patrol that goes out on the ground is a badge member, whether they're a dog handler, a radio operator, a demolitions expert, or a medical. They've all done the same selection, and we can all rely on them 100%.
Name me some countries that you felt you've been most in danger in.
I can name the one for me, which always I give to this question is Gaza, which is obviously Palestine. Do you know what I mean? When I was in Gaza, you were enclosed by a wall. You know, you had two choices. You could run in the sea, you could hide, or you could get shot by the Israelis trying to get out of there. Do you know what I mean? Those were your choices, like, do you know what I mean? And even if you ran in the sea, you know, you could only go for about 12 Ks, I think it was, and you'd encounter some sort of resistance. So, you know, the whole time you were in there, you were under an extreme pressure.
What were you doing in Gaza?
I did a number of things. I did a training task in Gaza where we were trying to bring locals up to a standard whereby they could open the borders and bring stuff in and out. Massively important, you know. Without stuff coming in and out, you know, thousands, millions of people were dying in Gaza, you know. And then we went back in there to protect some workers who were rebuilding a power station, which again was an extremely tough job. We had sort of like our immediate ring of people, and then we had a ring, but we actually had Hamas looking after us on the outside. It was insane, absolutely.
So incredible. Hamas were looking after you.
Yeah, and absolutely. And they had no choice really, because they couldn't get these jobs done on their own. So they had to sort of like say they had to compromise with us, but we had to compromise with them. I actually went on a small patrol with Hamas as a show of sort of like, no, we're brothers in arms here.
Yeah,
let's get the job done and get out of here. Like, do you know what I mean? So yeah, crazy times. But yeah, that was definitely the most dangerous place I felt. That there, do you know what I mean? Other places, you know, I'd been Baghdad, I'd been all over Iraq, Afghanistan, and these sorts of places. Well, I didn't so much feel that I was penned in and
was it
you know
tension? What I'm trying to get a feel of what it was like there.
It's just a dangerous place. Yeah. You know, anything can happen at any time. You know, and you had that feeling that, you know, at any time that, you know, somebody might do something that would jeopardise. You know, we're regularly people would just set up these Qassam missiles near our site. You'd see these things going off, and then the Israelis would respond. You'd hear it, you know, and that could be fairly indiscriminate. I'm going to be honest. You know what I mean? They were after.
I think when you're supported by, you know, when you're in the regiment, and you are supported by this force that is second to none. You know, you have this force field around you. But when you're doing jobs such as that, whether you're in the regiment or not, you are on your own.
There's no safety net.
No.
There was no QRF coming for me. You know, there was no SFFG coming after me. There was no team of SEALs. There was no Ranger attachment coming after me when I was in there.
So why did you choose to do it?
Oh,
money. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that particular place was done for money. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, it was a good, worthwhile job. Do you know what I mean? But it was, primarily.
How do you feel when you get an opportunity come up and you go, right, there's an opportunity to go to Gaza, and you're going, right, how much am I getting paid for that? Are you like, I'm in, I don't care, I'll take anything on? Is that your attitude?
My attitude is I'll have a look at any job, but I'll have to weigh it up and make sure that it fits the skill sets that I've got. Yeah. Because if it doesn't, I'm not doing it. Do you know what I mean? I don't care what you offer to pay me if I don't think I can pull it off. You know what I mean? There's a good chance I'm going to come home.
That comes from the experience you've gained throughout your career. All right, you know, we don't. You know, our industry now is risky, right? It's the risky business, but we own the risk. We create the threat assessments, the risk assessments, and then we choose to go in there. But we put the boundaries, the parameters in, and that's our job. You know, we own it. And in our business, there's no point in saying we've got to take, you know, some guy into Kyiv or Kharkov or somewhere like that. You know, if you turn that down, they're like, well, who else is going to do it? Yeah. So we've got to do it, and then we've got to mitigate that risk and make sure it's safe enough to do it. There's always an element of risk no matter what we do. Yeah.
And in countries like that, are you allowed to carry? Are you allowed to carry guns? Are you allowed to carry
only
anything?
In some countries you're allowed to carry. They're still, it's you know, in Iraq, in Baghdad, in Afghanistan. You know, Afghanistan not so much now. In Ukraine, you can carry. You've got to be licensed. It's got to be licensed to the company you're doing. But sometimes we had to have third parties. You know, when we worked in Nigeria, we would have third parties. Yeah,
you'd have the
with guns. In South Africa, we weren't licensed to do that. You know, it's the same here. No one is licensed to carry in this country unless they are sort of UKSF, and there's been a MACP, you know, military aid to civil police, or they are royal and diplomatic police, or they are armed officers. You know, we don't get nationalities coming over here who are carrying weapons. You know, all the courses we run, it's one of our first questions. You know. Is like, you know, can I carry overseas? No, you can't. Of course not, you know, because secular governments and police forces and things like that, there is restrictions, even in the States. Not a chance, Everyone thinks the States is gun ho, but their regulations for foreigners and carrying weapons is
strict.
Is strict.
Yeah,
same as anywhere in the world.
Have you ever been on the ships when you've had Somali pirates try to jump on the ships, cause problems?
Well, I spent years doing that. Do you know what I mean? But then again, if I spent 5 years at sea, I spent 5 minutes with pirates. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
A lot of long hours.
Have you had an experience of fighting against a pirate?
Oh yeah. Unarmed as well. Unarmed was,
So you weren't allowed to carry on the
the famous one, which people will have heard on here, is when I, ended up literally down to throwing a fridge off the side of the ship to defend them off. Like, do you know what I mean? That's where it got to. So it's again. After a time, they then brought these floating armories in, and you could get weapons if you were lucky, or your company was. But it was all down to what's your company willing to pay? Where do they want to go? Who can they use? It's not, once you're a civilian doing this sort of work, it's not the given that you can just pick up a gun, get tooled up, and go and do the work. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's no guarantees with it.
So just for the listener here, so you're on a ship, you're seeing Somali pirates coming on a speedboat. What's your initial reaction?
Are they for me?
Yeah.
Change course.
You have an escalation of force and rules of engagement you still got to follow. So everyone's well trained, and we've got some local companies, haven't we? Good companies like Solace and people like that are doing this on a daily basis. I used to own a maritime security company, and it was strict rules of engagement, and they've got their certain mileage. If they're coming into your radar, there's only one reason they're coming into your radar, and they are that profile. Speedboats with ladders and guns. You can see that. We have some good optics that can identify that. And then we start doing the escalation of force. Hoses, warning shots. And it's only when they come alongside, if you feel that your life is in threat and they've got guns and they're shooting at you, then you can engage at the very last moment.
Yeah.
And that does happen. It doesn't happen a lot because a lot of the stuff the guys put in place will avert that.
A lot of the deterrence,
will mitigate that.
Yeah, a lot of the deterrence put in place. Couple of shots over the head, laser pointer landing in your chest, it puts them off. These people will go for the easy target. That's what they're after. Do you know what I mean? They don't want a firefight to nick that ship.
Yeah.
Right? They don't. They're not coming in for tear up. They don't enjoy it. They don't want it. They are coming in for an easy target. Do you know what I mean? So if they can see something that hasn't got the hoses on it, that hasn't got the barbed wire, that's perhaps going a little bit slow, that has a low freeboard, when they get up next to that and it's got no one on the side of it waving at them with a gun, well, they're on, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? And that's the way they pretty much work it out there. Do you know what I mean?
What's that feeling like, knowing you're on a ship but you're not allowed to carry? Like, you must be thinking, what am I doing on here?
No, I'm confident in my own ability. I don't need a gun necessarily to go and do my job every time I go out.
But if there's 8 Somalians jumping on your ship,
well, you got to make your own luck, ain't you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We used to do all sorts on the ship. We'd have the doors wired up. We'd put grease all over the decks. We'd have petrol pits. We'd have all sorts for it. It was like the A-team travelling.
Tell me about.
No, we weren't going to make it easy for them.
Tell me another African country that you've been to, Matt, that you look at and go, Jesus, that's given me the fear.
Africa is it's a funny old place. It's unruly and without being too disrespectful, they have a different value of life. Some of the countries that I've been to, we look at this, and I remember speaking to my sort of the commander who was in charge of me. He was a good friend, and I said, well, we could roll through this. 2 squadrons, we could roll through this country and sort this out. And he looked at me and said, mate, that's what I thought when I was in Somalia in 1992, 94, when Black Hawk Down went. They were there at that point. I wasn't there then. And he said exactly that. But as soon as that spark initiated, it erupts. Yeah. Everyone's on you. They're around you. And it happened to me once where we had an RTA in a country where we were training some troops, African troops, undercover, and we had an RTA, and all of a sudden something sparked, and you could see a difference in their eyes where they wanted you, they wanted us, because they realised now there's a lot of people that weren't from their nation, i.e. white people, and they wanted you. And we were a commodity now. They wanted us for a reason, and we had to think fast on our feet. We had to get it all tucked up, and we had to get out there sharpish. If you hold and try and hold that fight, everyone in that country and everyone in that area becomes a threat. There's guns cutting around Africa, like we have water bottles. It is a natural. It's just everyone's got a gun.
It's a dangerous
and as
place.
soon as that spark goes, everyone's got a gun.
Yeah.
If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, unfortunately, you're going to pay.
And they yell at you. We evacuated out of a place called Guinea, and that had all gone Pete Tong, and they destroyed the airport. I remember I've got photographs of the planes they'd broken and all that sort of stuff.
Where's this? Papua New Guinea?
No, just Guinea. It's called Guinea.
Just Guinea.
Yeah,
okay.
it's West Africa.
Yeah.
And I remember the locals used to call you Tubabu, which means white man. And everywhere we drove, if they see you, on the way out, when we was trying to get up this main sort of like MSR back up into we was escaping up into Mali, actually, which is probably not even the best place now either, is it? But we were escaping up towards Mali, and everywhere you went, it was like, Tubabu, Tubabu, Tubabu. And as soon as people heard Tubabu, the heads came up,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We were just nailing it out of there, mate. I'm telling you, do you know what I mean? Horrendous.
Your money. Your
Yeah.
money.
Tubabu.
You're their ticket out of there, aren't you? Yeah.
Today, let's talk about today, lads. Where do you reckon the state of our country's in today?
Well, since the recent elections,
Yeah.
Since before that, since we had the lies, the mess that the Conservatives left us in, the splitting of that party. You think not so long ago they had a huge majority, and then they just fragmented because they wanted the power. There was no leadership really. There was lies.
Look how many people they went through as Prime Minister.
Yeah.
You couldn't hold on to the reins for more than 2 minutes, could they? Do you know what I mean? And so
Surely
the rug was
that's
being
a
pulled
basic mistake, isn't it?
Of course it is, yeah.
This country could not vote for the Conservatives again, but unfortunately, Labour were given a pass.
Yeah.
They were given a pass to run this country.
But they seem to have won because no one actually voted Conservative because everyone lost complete
We have the worst turnout on the ballots, on the ballot box ever.
Yeah.
So they've been given a free pass, and so far they've messed it up.
Yeah.
Well, they've made
the Conservatives look good.
Yeah. They've been horrendous. You turned on everything they said. They've weighed into everyone who can't defend themselves, old people.
Yeah.
Look what they don't. There is literally people in this country who are heat or eat. How can you do that? Old people, heat or eat. There you go. There's choices.
Politics has just we've lost our way with politics at the moment. There is no honesty in politics anymore.
Has there been honesty before?
No, you're right. But the population nowadays, when everything is transparent, the population now demands honesty.
Agree.
And I think with some of the words and some of the parties, and without getting too politicised, some of the parties coming through, they realise that the Conservatives lied to the population. They ain't going to last. Labour come in with no policies. They didn't really. Their fiscal plan is shocking. They've come in, they've told lies before they've even got in within their 6 months. We are not going to tax the individuals. They've taken down the elderly. They are losing control. The hot seats of Labour up in the north of England. Do you think, they want to see their elderly, starve and some of them die? That is what we're all about, working class. Labour's lost their direction already. They are not looking after their working class.
Labour originally, the whole thing was Labour was supposed to be this sort of like working class man's.
That's right. Yeah.
But it seems to have gone the other way. They seem to have gone into this woke void of lunacy. Do you know what I mean? And they just seem to completely have strayed away from the agenda, leaving the working man, the working individuals. What have they got now?
Yeah.
Who can they turn to? Do you know what I mean? The Conservatives have always been a little bit, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? Labour was meant to be theirs, but that's gone completely woke. Where does the working man go? Do you know what I mean? Where who listens to him?
The working man wants honesty. The working man, women, we want honesty in our, and we want, if you made a mistake,
put your hands up.
Put your hand up and say, we're going to own this mistake and we're going to reverse it.
Yeah.
That, I think, for us, if someone done that in front of me, I'd respect them more.
Yeah. Taking ownership.
It's not this, we've made a decision, we're going to run with it. You're just digging that hole deeper, But there's no cross-party politics in this country. When I mean cross-party politics, we've got some very intelligent people across all of these parties. If we put these people together and come up with solutions, someone has obviously got to make the final decision. But if we put these people together and war game it, do an estimate on the problems, and then come up with a solution, someone owns that end decision, I think we'd be in a much better place.
I mean, if you took a step out of that and said, right, we'll run it as a business, do you know what I mean? Your business is failing all over the place. You're not doing anything about it. You're making it work.
But if you're running a business, you know how much you're bringing in and you know how much you're spending.
Yeah.
If I went to ask Keir Starmer how much you bring in, how much you're spending, none of them have got a clue.
There doesn't seem to be any accountability. And if you look at what Donald Trump's just done over there, he's going to tell you what, USA, tell me, down to the last cent, where's that money gone?
USA.
Who spent it?
Yeah,
USA.
Yeah.
So who spent it? Who wrote it off? Who authorised it? Who sanctioned it?
Yeah.
Where did it go and how much and where?
A lot of people a lot of people at the moment, what I'm seeing, are going to get done for fraud.
Imagine if they did
There's
that
there's a lot of money being given over to all sorts of people and no one knows.
You know, that thing in the day, you know, recruiting 250 grand for somebody to now be what was it?
Cambridge County Council.
Cambridge County Council, recruiting.
Listen, we have it in this country. Our MOD, we have young officers like Perry, well-trained officers. He's done his 3 years. He'll get out and go and work for a consulting firm. Next thing you know, we've tripled his wages and he's back in the MOD, consulting for the MOD, but working for a commercial firm. I mean, to me, that's a waste of money. We're training these very intelligent individuals to do things. We need to embrace them, not kick them out of the military and let them come back as consultants. That's where we're wasting a lot of money. We're not educate. We're not putting enough money into the people, homegrown people.
The homegrown thing's massive for me as well. And if you look at, the disparity with how they treat an illegal immigrant to how they treat a veteran on the street, it's huge. You're getting this, that, and the other. And I don't have a beef with immigrants at all, in as far as if you truly need to come here because where you've come from is so shocking, you need sanctuary, in you come. And we will help you. We will do our best.
But how do you sign that bit off, though? How do you sign that little bit off, whether they are right for us or not?
Well, it's not whether they're right for us. It's whether, what isn't right for us is if they come in here, ditching their paperwork on the way, do you know what I mean? Turning up unannounced with no track or trace, and then not wanting to fit in and conform with the status quo when they get here. That's when it becomes absolutely intolerable for me.
Who signs that off?
Yeah, I mean, there is no deterrent, is there? We haven't got a deterrent. It's a European problem. It's not just a British problem.
No, that's right.
And we do, of course we need immigrants. This nation is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have always welcomed immigrants into this country. After the Second World War, we were taking in all of the Europeans that were being persecuted by Adolf Hitler and the Third Reich. We took every nation comes to this country and we embrace them and look after them. But these are not real immigrants, These are people that are chancing it. These are fighting age males
because they know
coming across our border. And, and common sense prevails. There is a reason why they're doing that. And we've got to stop it. We need this big deterrent now. Where do we get a deterrent from? We had a deterrent, right or wrong. We had a deterrent. But a deterrent, number one, is they're coming here for money and they're sending it home. And then, we've got to stop that money. Stop it. They go into the same camps that we went in, that is good enough for soldiers, it's good enough for immigrants. Yeah. And if they don't hit that criteria, the criteria needs to be robust, not this wokeness that is going on, that is ruining this country. It needs to be robust, and we need a robust plan. Yeah. And they will be removed.
But ultimately, as you know, as it is with the amount of people in this country, we're trying to get £10 of shit in a £2 bag. There's too many people, isn't it? There's too many people. The schools are rammed. The schools, 40 people in the class plus. You know what I mean? The jails are full to the gunnels. Everything that we've got, our health system, our roads even. Yeah. Everything is absolutely fuller than a fat girl's shoes. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous, isn't it?
The NHS is broken.
It's toppers, isn't it? It's toppers.
Yeah. The NHS is broken, isn't it?
Yeah. But so is the prison system.
Yeah, everything's broken.
So is the police system.
But why? Let's look into it. Let's tell the truth. Let's look at it. The police. This government is not giving us enough time. The police can't do their job. The border force can't do their job because every time they speak out of turn or do something that's a little bit robust, they're getting suspended. There's 3,000 coppers from the Metropolitan Police that are suspended now.
You're joking me?
No,
is that right?
That is come from a copper. That is 3,000 coppers that we need on the streets.
Why are they
fighting
suspended?
Knife crime because of stupidness. They are not. When we were in the military back in the day, and not all. I'm not saying this is an old-fashioned solution. it is a solution, right? We have a rank structure. If you mess up, you go in front of your superior, right? It's dealt with there and then. It is not dealt with by the CPS and, 2 years down the line we're found there's not a problem. This is pretty straightforward. If you're a little bit, not heavy-handed, but if you said the wrong thing, like a human does, a human makes mistakes, that is called human nature. You apologise and you crack on. If you do it again and it becomes a habit, then that's when you're starting to lose your job, all right? But deal with these problems, deal with them at ground level, deal with them at the workforce. Don't pass it up the chain of command. Let's not have 3,000 coppers on suspension for something silly. And I know there's some, probably not all silly, and there's some that are serious, but we could rid some of that. We could get some of that, deal with it now, get them back on the streets, give them the support they need, give them a bloody good pension, give them great support, good wages, because they're on the front line as well, don't forget. They're on the front line. We need those guys. We've got knife crime that is out of control. Sadiq Khan has just rinsed London, and it is out of control. There's more knife crime, there's more crime in London than there's ever been before, and it's increasing.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you speak to Americans, they all think London is the worst place in the world, talking about knife crime. That's with the Americans carrying guns everywhere.
That's right.
Knife crime is naughty in London.
Yeah.
I mean,
look, I mean, we used to box at the Peacock, me and Matt. Yeah. We knew some lovely young lads there. But I remember one young lad turning up. He had his triceps scythed off his arm. It's not knife crime. That's a sword crime.
Yeah.
That's insane. Do you know what I mean? It's like next level.
We've still got no-go areas in this country.
Yeah.
That hasn't even been publicised.
Yeah.
We're not even talking about how can we have a no-go area in a Western country. That just tells me there's criminality, there's gang warfare going on. If we can't send a copper into that area, then something's not right.
Yeah.
That needs to change. Sadiq Khan has not addressed it. He's made it worse.
He has made it worse.
That man needs to bloody go.
He needs to go.
He has made it worse. He's made it a lot worse.
Who would be a good replacement for Sadiq Khan in London?
Me. No.
No, but on a serious note, it needs someone with military background.
We need a Mayor Giuliano. We need someone to step up to the plate, address the elephant in the room, and actually start cracking the whip and getting amongst these people. Because unless you do, it's just going to run riot around you. You know what I mean? Somebody's going, no, enough's enough. Right, stop. As we go, right, you need this power, do you? Right, you've got that power now. You can stop and search. You can do that without fear of everybody jumping on your head for doing your job. Right. Do you know what I mean? Because if you don't start doing that, hey, guess what? Everybody else is just going to run around doing what the hell they like, and that's what they're doing now.
Someone who's been given the space, who's apolitical, who is, not from is not a religious background. Someone, there is no religious politics in this country, and there should never be sectarian politics, which I think there is at the moment in London. And I think Sadiq Khan is pushing this sectarian politics, which is, it should never be allowed, It should be apolitical. It should be for the people. And we need someone...
for the good and benefit of Londoners, it should not happen, full stop. Do you know what I mean?
And that goes for every province in this country.
But does this come back down again where Londoners didn't vote? Because you look at the voting count again, Londoners didn't really vote. It's going to be to the next election where actually the whole country are going to vote, and I think the whole of London are going to vote.
And do you know what, Dodge? You've hit the nail on the head. One of my biggest bugbears is that after the elections, everyone whinged, right?
Yeah.
Labour's in, Labour's doing this, Conservatives didn't win, right? There was riots on the streets because of what was going on. But I tell you what, on the next elections, we must push people to get on their feet and go and vote, because they are the only ones that can create a change.
I think the next election, I reckon, will be the biggest vote ever.
We need that vote.
Yeah.
You see.
I think also they've got to look at the way that the constituencies are constructed as well, because if you did a straight 50-50, which we did on Brexit, right? You did a straight 50-50. Well, that side won. The Brexit side won, but they don't seem to be represented in the bigger scheme of things. When you vote as a country one, they're not represented that way, because we've broke it into conveniently sized constituencies where those sorts of people, well, you can only have one vote in that town, but you can have all these different areas here and you get 7 votes.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's happened again, isn't it? With the local elections that's going on,
So basically what Keir Starmer just cancelled the elections in May.
Cancelled them.
Why? Why is
he's
he
not gonna
cancelled
win.
him? Because he's not going to win. But that's like a dictatorship, isn't
Let's
it?
wait and see. The excuse that Starmer and that crazy cabinet have come up with is that they're gonna change and do a reform, on reform being the good word, but they're going to reform the way in which local elections are voted on. But it's not going to be for the better, is it?
No.
Comrade Starmer.
They're going to strengthen their hand even more,
of course,
and take it even more out of the
but
working
if we
man's
went
hands.
into those local elections in May, we would have seen a massive change,
Agree.
a massive switch in what the population.
But
wants.
how frustrating is it that the Prime Minister can actually make that call?
I don't know how he can. I mean, he's gone completely against us.
Yeah.
He's gone against his population. He's gone against the people he serves.
He's gone against
and
the
he's disregarded everything we say
Yeah.
or think.
And he's not bothered. You know, and then there's all these other stories, sort of like fueling the fire with them all accepting handouts, all having this, that, and the other. Do you know what I mean? It's just a shocking.
You know,
it's one rule for one for the other.
Labour, a working class party. The leader of Labour.
Yeah.
Have you Googled how much Keir Starmer is worth?
Yeah.
Go on.
It's phenomenal. He's worth, and that's. I think he's worth between 10 and 20 million pounds.
Yeah. My dad was a tool maker.
His dad was a tool maker, and
Crazy.
not putting it down. He's been very, he's welcomed capitalists because he's made a good living out of it. But now he's enforcing communism on us. We can't vote. The MPs under Keir Starmer, we have, I've been bumping my gums at our veterans minister, who is one of our local lads here, right, and done a fantastic job in the military. But do you think that he didn't want to vote? He is not allowed to vote on what he thinks. So the veterans bill that come in about them taxing the money from the dead veterans.
That's disgusting, by the way.
It's absolutely disgusting, and it makes us boil. But you look at who voted on that bill. Not one Labour MP voted against it. Are you telling me that was their true belief? You're telling me that was Al Kearns' true belief?
Yeah, no, I'm not. Because I'd like to look Al Kearns in the face and ask him about that if that was the case. Do you know what I mean? You tell me, Al. Do you know what I mean? And I do know him. You must know him as well.
Yeah, and I respect him hugely for what he done for this country.
Warrior.
And but you must be allowed. That's what politics is all about. You must be allowed to vote, and if we don't have that, we don't get a true balance of
just
what the country
explain
believes.
to the listener there what you mentioned about someone passing away and now.
So what has gone on, and it's a small majority. What they've said is that it's the same as inheritance tax for the farmers, basically. That if someone passes away in training, what happens is that the families, the partners and the children get a lump sum and they get a pension.
Yeah.
All right. It's not a lot of money. All right. But that is all they've got to survive on. Yeah. You imagine the only breadwinner. When we were growing up in the military, our wives couldn't work, all right, because they had young children to look after. But you imagine if that partner dies, right? That lump sum is a lifesaver. That pension is a lifesaver. What Starmer and his cronies have done is tax that. So they have taken, if you get 20 grand, they've taken, what is the figure? £5,000 or £10,000 off of that number. What? And
have they just brought that in now?
That's just been brought in. That was taken.
They voted for it. They've all sat there and bare-eyed gone, we'll have some of it.
How many Labour has more veteran MPs than any other party, and they've all voted for that bill. You telling me that is what they believe in? They want to take the money off of the families of the dead soldiers.
That's disgusting.
That is disgusting.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see them go and sit in the mess at Hereford and recount that same tale.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because it wouldn't, it just wouldn't happen.
How many military are there in government?
We have I think we got 36 MPs from cross parties, around 36
in Labour
cross parties. I think Labour own about 18 of those.
Okay, so what we're saying here is 18 of them would have voted for to get the
18 of those have said that it's a good idea to take money off of people that desperately need it. That's the bottom line on that one. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to beat on the bush on it.
But why did they vote? Right? Because Starmer, and you can see the unity, and I understand in one respect the fragmentation the Conservatives are all about. They couldn't stick together on any bill, right? But Labour has said, you vote against me, you're going to lose the whip. and I've spoken to some of our close friends who are Labour councillors up in the north of England, and they have been told that direct, you vote against what we propose, and you will lose that whip. You will lose the power.
So where's the integrity there? Where's the integrity there?
That is called communism.
Where is it for the right man to do the right thing?
What about the right man who's getting paid $100,000 as an MP?
Yeah.
What about him going, do you know what? I'm not having this. Have your $100,000, but I'm going to make a point here.
Well, I think Rupert Lowe's just done that.
Yeah,
On a GB News interview yesterday, he said, MP's going to hand back his money because they're now on about raising the a good point. They're going to raise the wages of MPs to 94,000, but that's not the baseline. That's not right. They also get a huge amount of expenses.
That's right.
And also they get extra money for each job they get. So if you get appointed part of the cabinet, you get another. Don't quote me on this, but you get an extra lump. So you get an extra 50k or something like that, or 100k for every job you do. I mean, it's we are there is an argument that we should pay our MPs more. We should pay our MPs more, and that way we would be attracting more business people with more business acumen into that,
which
job.
is very much needed.
At the moment, we've got a front bench. No one's run a business, which we know it's been publicised. Our veterans minister is making claims. He left the military to make a change, he told me. He told me 6 months ago, Matt, I left it to make a change. The only change I've seen him make is taking the money away from the dead partners and the children of the servicemen that have died serving this country. Right? No business acumen. You would not do that. Recruitment, retention, we've just big swipe at all of the military and everyone that serves under this cabinet. How do
you think he sat there feeling right now when he listens to this?
I just, I think he's a good man. And after speaking to him...
I genuinely think he's a decent bloke.
But I think that they are under so much pressure from the top to conform with what Comrade Starmer is saying. I think it'll be suppressed. I think by the time... And I don't think it will take long. I think we will start seeing fragmentation within the Labour Party because they cannot hold this command and this strict sort of communism over MPs who've been voted in by us to make a change, to help this government. It's not a one party. It should never be a one person autocratic party. It needs to be a secular government with great ideas, and cross party politics. And it's not happening.
There is light on the end of the tunnel, though. There is light. Look, I take great.
Where is the light?
I think there's light in the fact that now,
we've got to wait 4 more years.
No, the tide of balance is changing in a lot of areas since Trump's got his hands on the job over there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are waking up to this woke culture which has kicked in, which again will sway things hopefully back to a more central line of policies as opposed to being that far over that it's just embarrassingly. Out of control. So I think that's the light at the end of the tunnel. And I would hope that by Trump being how he is and by Musk doing what he's doing, others will follow suit. And that the average man, the average Joe, will get his say back, will get his voice back. Because until the average Joe, the average reasonable man on the street gets his voice back, you're not going to have average reasonable solutions governing your country, are you? Do you know what I mean? It's the way I see it.
Department of Government Efficiency. It's exactly what we need in our country.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Someone to go through the books and see what we're spending, how much we're bringing in, where's the taxpayers' money going.
Yeah.
At the moment, we're all sitting there going, where's our money going? It's been spunked up the woods and thrown here and everywhere. It's just frustrating everyone.
Where can we nick a quid? Where would a quid be better spent? All that sort of stuff.
We can look at, and we're going to bump the Veterans Affairs, the Office for Veterans Affairs. How many people do you think are looking after the veteran in the civil service? How many people are under our Veterans Minister now?
Go on.
Go and have a guess, We've got 80 people that are being paid to look after these veterans. Do we see 80 people on say 30, 40k a year? All right. Are we seeing that? Why do we need that amount of people to come up with common sense and make change? We don't. The civil service, and I know it's people's jobs, But the civil service, that's taxpayers' money. We need to streamline that. We need to make it much better. That needs to be looked at by a proper businessman.
If there's going to be 80 people working, we'll make sure they're doing 80 people's jobs and make sure there's getting 80 people's results and make sure that it's being 80 times the improvement in people's situations.
We need output.
We've still got soldiers living under blankets on the street.
See, that's the bit that kills me. Military on the streets and they're not getting looked after.
Yeah, I mean, I am the CEO for the Pilgrim Bandits charity, and it's a fantastic charity. It is a flexible, robust charity that gives money. We do not, the charitable sector put in for military charities. There's a thing called COPSO, it's a Confederation of Military Charities. We're not a part of it. Right? They put in a protocol 10 or 15 years ago about making a Form Alpha. The British Legion that people give lots of money to is failing. Help for Heroes are failing. And the way I say that is the protocols that they have put in place are broken. They have a thing called a Form Alpha, where case officers used to come around your house, used to see the families and have that compassion. You would fill out the Form Alpha. It assesses your mental health, your physical health, your financial health, and it tells us what you need. They've sacked all the caseworkers. There aren't caseworkers now in the British Legion, right? They've got rid of them all, right? But they've put it online. I had a wife of a paratrooper. This young paratrooper died at 54 last week, and we buried him in Bournemouth. And his wife was struggling, and she needed financial support. She needed that compassion. It didn't happen. We had to step in and raise money because the British Legion could not adopt a protocol that was robust enough to give her money.
And the funds are there. The funds are there.
The top 10...
And the people that give those funds are in the belief that woman's going to get helped out.
And let's get this right. This government and all governments have given the charity sector huge amounts of money. All right? That money gets given to organisations like COBSIO, all the big charities, that have already been bought up. RBL have been bought up and criticised this year for not giving enough money. So the government do give money. It is not accessible. We cannot access money. We don't get any government money in our charity. Every penny we get is publicly funded, and every penny we get each year is spent on veterans. No other charity can say that. And this protocol for the charities is broken, and it needs fixing.
If you've spent time, in a job where you have improved people's lives or added to the benefit of other people in this country, i.e. you've served it in the blue light, in the forces, if you've been a doctor, a nurse, etc., then you should be nowhere near the back of the queue when it comes to giving out benefits when you fall on hard times, because it can happen to anybody at any time. I've been there myself. I've been homeless myself since I've been out. Do you know what I mean? And, only by the grace of God and some few good people around me, I've got back on my feet. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it's down to at the moment. And it shouldn't be like that. There should be an absolute, undeniable, it's going to happen. If you're in trouble, you're going to be helped. Boom.
I think the top 10 military charities in this country have, not in the bank, but assets and also money in the bank, £4 billion.
Yeah.
We haven't got £4 billion of problems with veterans.
No.
Right? And they keep that money. They're constantly being chastised for not spending that money, rightly so. We need to access that money.
Yeah,
it needs to be a policy, and that's what ours should be looking at now.
Yeah,
how are we going to create, break that stigma of getting charities to give money and support veterans? We're not doing it. We've still got veterans that are struggling. We've still got veterans that are out of work. These veterans have great, they have great initiative. They're great that. We just need to give them a break, give them a chance, give them employment, and they'll give back to this community.
Agree. Tell me what's happening with the government and the British farmers.
Exactly that.
Again, the tax thing. They've slapped them with this thing.
The inheritance tax.
The inheritance tax. These farms are large places.
Yeah.
They're large. When they fold, they're going to be worth a lot of money. That doesn't mean that you're giving it to somebody and they're going to automatically, have a massive profit in their life. They're not. They're going to have to pick up the pieces and still run this huge asset. Do you know what I mean? And you're going to try and take another chunk out of that asset before they hit the ground and try and run with it again.
It doesn't matter to Labour because the farmer's not their voting base.
Yeah.
All right, so they're hitting everyone that doesn't vote Labour. It doesn't matter to them. They're not going to change this inheritance tax. We were there supporting the farmers. I done a speech yesterday for the farmers, and I said, we're part of the community. We're the backbone of this country. In the Second World War, if it wasn't for the farmers, this country would have starved.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for the veterans, this country would have been under Nazi rule, you know? And he's hitting them, you know. Again, it's not huge amounts. And I heard a Labour MP say, what's everyone whinging about? It's not a huge amount. But it's a huge amount. If you have had this farm in your family for 4 or 5 generations, you want to hand it down to your children.
And then you've got a 50%
You
tax
can't
bill.
do it. Where can we?
You can't. How can you pay that?
You can't.
You know, all inheritance tax.
Well, you've got to sell off the land, and that's probably what they want.
It's not just farmers.
Yeah.
Inheritance tax is immoral.
Yeah.
You know, when if your parents and
So to
if
build
your parents die and you take over that property, where are you going to find the sort of money?
Yeah.
And to build that amount of wealth, you've obviously paid taxes all your life anyway. So you're getting taxed on your tax with a bit more tax.
Yeah.
Well, everything we do, we're getting taxed on. Everywhere you move.
The
I think
clothes
the
you wear, the
statistic
fuel
is
you
that
put in your machinery.
Every penny you earn, you only ever up with 25. You only ever end up with 25% of that money.
That's right.
It's crazy
Yeah, it's
throughout your
crazy.
life. Absolutely crazy. And our children are going to suffer.
And I think what's happened that no one sort of the unwritten rule is no one talks about how cash has been taken out of the system.
Yeah.
Cash has been taken out of the system over the last 2-3 years. The unwritten rule was if you were a builder, you would have your rainy day money. If you were a nightclub person, you have your rainy day money. If you were a contractor, you have your rainy day money, everything. All the rainy day money's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everyone now is getting clobbered and clobbered and clobbered with no fun money left at the end of the month.
Yeah.
I see a post on a community group this morning actually, and a lady had paid for her fuel in cash, and the garage had to ask for the registration number and all that.
Crazy.
Name and address. Like, what?
Crazy.
You know, cash, you know, we
Cash
need
is king.
cash. Of course it is.
If you're a bar owner, a restaurateur, or whatever you do, cash, a hairdresser, everyone wanted cash for your rainy day money. That's for me.
Yeah.
That's what's
they
going
do.
for the books. That's what it was, and no one's speaking about that. But I think that's put an actual stranglehold on the whole nation over the last sort of 18 months. But the billionaires get away with it.
Of course it is.
The billionaires that are paid, I think, about 7% tax.
Yeah. But you know,
Wild.
and you know, billionaires.
Good luck to billionaires, by the way, because they've
You're
earned their money. But I'm talking like your big.
But
your big-
billionaires are the people that are bringing industry into this country.
Yeah.
Right. So if you employ 100 people, it's 100 people on 40% tax. There's 100 people that are buying a house. 100
that's
people
right.
that are going to the shopping each day.
But there's loopholes everywhere for your big Amazons and your other big companies. They're getting loopholes that we're not getting the money, tax money we should be getting off them.
Well, wasn't it Starbucks who just taken the mickey for
Yeah.
years?
I mean, there needs to be some sort of mediation, without a doubt. But if we overtax the big companies, they're going to do what they're doing now. They're going to leave this country.
Yeah.
We want to increase investment in this country. Can you imagine if you were in charge of Great Britain? You know what? You know, with your entrepreneurship, what would you do? You've got the best country in the world with the great people.
Our country's
You know,
amazing.
It's amazing. We've got commodities.
We've got the
oil
best
in the North
entrepreneurs
Sea.
in the world. What's happening though? Last
100%.
year, 10,000 entrepreneurs have left the country. 10,000. I've gone, you know what? I'm going to Dubai. I'm going to Portugal. I'm going out of this country. Crap weather. 6 months a year it's raining. Nothing's happening in this country. Everyone's pissed off. You know, these are the people. This is us entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of what's going on here.
Yep.
We're the one who employ people. We're the one who create ideas to create new businesses.
But we're not. The population are being used as a cash cow.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone is being taxed to the hill. You know, the people that mean everything to this country are being whacked.
Yeah.
Right? How far can that go? Because the companies that employ people are leaving. So you're going to carry on taxing and taxing and taxing. This population and this country will be broke in 4 years' time.
Gents, absolutely love this. I really appreciate making the effort, and what a fantastic conversation.
Yeah, we could probably
We could chat for hours. We could go for hours, and I know that. I know. I was thinking, where's this going? Where's this going? But this is really good stuff, and this is from like two men who've served their country, who are very, very well respected all around the world. I really do appreciate your time, Phil, and Matt. It's an absolute pleasure. I appreciate your time as well.
Always, mate. Thank you.
No, cheers.
God bless.
You're a good
mate.
man. Good man. Cheers, gents.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mate, that's quality. Thanks for watching, guys. If you'd like to see someone on the show, leave a comment below. And if you haven't already, do us a favour, show us a bit of love, press the subscribe button, and it allows us to grow the show even bigger and bigger each week. Nice one.